You say this absolutely changed the DNA of who you were.
Without question. It rewrote my DNA. And that developed my mindset to start looking at things through that Navy SEAL lens.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Dr. Phil Podcast. Let me take a moment to say thank you. We've kind of relaunched the podcast, and wow, boy, have you guys come out in a strong support of everything we're doing in our content. So thank you so much for that. Our community has really stepped up in the engagement. You guys are telling everybody you know and apparently believe in having these meaningful conversations that we're having. Our views on YouTube, all of our listenership, and I'm reading your comments and really appreciate everything that you had to say. And yes, I do read them. Nobody reads them for me. None of this would be possible without all of you tuning in and sharing and engaging. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. Click that button below and follow and share this podcast with all your friends, which you're doing. So keep doing it and tell more and more people, because I think we are having meaningful conversations here. We're in this together. And I appreciate each and every one of you. So I want to get to today's guest, Joel Lambert. Now, this man has lived through some situations that most of us won't, and most of us can't even fathom. Joel is a former Navy SEAL. He's a survival strategist and an escape and evasion expert. Joel mastered the art of thriving under pressure, and he's been in some of the most dangerous places on earth. But what sets him apart isn't just his physical training, it's his mindset. And that's what we're diving into, what it really means to develop mental resilience, how fear can be transformed into focus, and what his SEAL expertise can teach all of us about handling life's toughest challenges. And trust me, this is a conversation that is really packed with insight that will change the way you think about survival. It'll change the way you think about success and pushing through adversity. And we all have to face with that. So, Joel, thank you for being here and taking time to talk to me today.
Dr. Phil, thanks for having me on. I'm a fan. I'm very excited to be here.
I don't know what percent of people that are in the armed services go through the Navy SEAL training and survive and succeed, but it's damn few. Fair to say?
Oh, yes. It's minuscule, in fact. The screening process, just to get to the screening process, is very intense. And then once you get there, then 80% of those people are going to quit, fail, and some of them die.
Those that make it through obviously have a unique quality about them and a unique mindset in order to get through. And you've kind of specialized within the Navy SEAL population and certainly in the years since then, and have developed, I think it's safe to say, an unmatched expertise in escape and evasion, home defense, personal resilience, and strategic planning in high-pressure environments. And I want to talk about that a little bit. You have created a Navy SEALs bug-in guide, and I'm going to let you define that for people. What is a bug-in guide? I know because I've been immersed in this now for a while, but tell people what you mean by a bug-in guide.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're immersing yourself in the curriculum. Well, I did this television show. After I got out of the military, I did a television show on Discovery Channel for a lot of years called Manhunt. It was called Lone Target here in the U.S. And I would insert in foreign countries. I would skydive in places I wasn't supposed to be. I would ride across borders under trucks. I would infiltrate different countries and then would ping them and let them know I was there. And then their Special Operations Force, Fugitive Recovery Team, or Specialty Tracking Unit would use all their assets at their disposal, dogs, thermal imaging, SWAT teams, native trackers, whatever they had to try to track me down and capture me before I made it to my extract point 2 to 4 days away. And I'd be doing booby traps, anti-tracking, counter-tracking, deception trails, whatever I could do to try to get away. And so about the same time, in the intersection of what the public finds cool in military tactics and techniques and procedures, everyone was getting really into bugging out. What's in your bug out bag? And you have a bug out bag by your door so you can grab it and get out of your house if something goes wrong. It was a big thing. And they were always asking me, since this is kind of what I was doing at a very high level on TV, what's in my bug out bag? And what do I what are my essentials for bugging out? Do I want to put my name, brand, a Bugout bag? And I would always say, look, bugging out, this is the option you use when everything that could possibly go wrong has, and there's nothing else for you to do but just run. Because everything that you need in a survival situation, shelter, water, food, communication, and navigation, those are the big five, in my opinion. You have all those things right at your house. Why would I want to abandon all those things at the slightest hint of trouble and go run someplace where I'm going to have to reset and reestablish those survival minimums? So what I said is bugging in, creating a safe place in your house where you have everything you need in case the world goes crazy over toilet paper or, protesting something, or World War III or Ukraine or whatever happens to come down. It's a crazy time that we're in right now. I want to have my house safe for my family, for my loved ones, for myself, where I'm able to have all the things I need at my disposal, and I don't have to leave my house if I don't need to. And then if I do need to bug out, if I need to run away, I can always run away. But I want to have a home base, a tactical operations center where everything I need, my weapons, my tools, my food, my water, all the things I need are right here. And I want to be set up for that. So I wrote my book, The Navy SEALs Bugging Guide. Cover all the essentials.
Give us the big five again. You said the big five that you need.
The big five. Well, there's three essentials, and those are shelter, water, food, and those are for survival. So in that order, you need to, and when I say shelter, shelter is anything that protects your physical body from the elements. So your clothing, a house, of course, a tent, a fire is shelter. Anything that protects your body from the elements. Water is the next most important thing. I can survive 3 hours without shelter in an inclement situation. I can survive 3 days without water. So water is the next thing on my list. And then food, I can survive 3 weeks without that. So there's my order of precedence of the things I have to establish. And then when I'm in a bugging out or a survival situation, I'm also going to need to navigate. I'm going to need to figure out where I'm at a bare minimum and where I need to go and how to get there. And then communication. How do I communicate? How do I signal? That could be a signal fire. It could be your cell phone. It could be a radio, anything that's allowing you to communicate with friendlies in the area.
There are a lot of people right now that think this would be a very extreme situation, but I have a home in California, and we just had massive fires out there, and there were winds 70 miles an hour, blowing embers, sometimes 10, 15 miles from where they originated and starting fires. It really was like a war zone out there. There was no communication. The fire department couldn't get where they needed to go. They'd open up a fire hydrant and it would just drip. There was nothing there. Cell towers were down. You couldn't get in touch with anybody. We saw that happen right in LA, in an area the size of Manhattan Island. I've talked to people regarding the border and people coming across into this country right now. If somebody attacks our energy grid, for example, which I think is very vulnerable.
Very likely as well.
Particularly if there was a coordinated attack on our energy grid, we could be in a really tough situation where we didn't have communication. We didn't have power to our houses. We didn't have the ability to get food, medication, our water supply. We could be in that situation a lot quicker than people might think. Is that an overstatement?
No, that's a very astute observation. And people don't realize how vulnerable the energy grid is. What you brought up, that's a big one, because any kind of it doesn't even need to be a coordinated attack. It doesn't need to be a state actor. Some rogue actors, taking direction from whomever across the border, just like you mentioned, could very easily take out large swaths of our power. And people don't realize how dependent. They're like, oh, it's okay, I can't charge my phone or watch TV. Well, what you don't think of is that big pumping station down the street that makes sure that the water comes out of your faucet and is clean, runs on electricity. And if the grid goes down, all of a sudden you're going to turn on your faucet and nothing's going to happen.
A lot of people, we get to taking it for granted and literally think water does come out of the faucet, electricity comes out of the wall. But that's not true. I mean, there's a whole infrastructure that brings that to us. And it is vulnerable, and we could be in a situation where we need exactly what you're talking about. Coming home and slipping into my Cozy Earth pajamas and crawling into bed with their ridiculously soft sheets has transformed my nights into the most relaxing part of my day, all because of Cozy Earth. The Cozy Earth sheets are breathable, so I sleep cooler, and the fabrics are durable. If you haven't tried Cozy Earth yet, you're missing out on what feels like a 5-star hotel at home. With a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty, you've got absolutely nothing to lose. Luxury is in reach. Visit CozyEarth.com and use my code PHIL for up to 40% off sheets, towels, pajamas, and more. If you get a post-purchase survey, tell them you heard about Cozy Earth from the Dr. Phil podcast. Sanctuary awaits at Cozy Earth. With so much going on in your life, it can be easy to neglect your diet. Balance of Nature fruits and veggies supplements have 31 ingredients made from fruits and vegetables. They're a fast and simple way to get a wide and colorful variety that fits right into your busy schedule. Just 3 fruits and 3 veggies supplements daily with some water, that's it. Whether you're off to spend time with your grandchildren or on your favorite hike, you can rely on these convenient supplements to be there every step of the way. Start your journey with Balance of Nature. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com to get a free fiber and spice supplement, plus 35% off your first preferred set as a new preferred customer with free shipping and our money-back guarantee. Go to balanceofnature.com or call 1-800-246-8751 and get this special offer by using discount code Dr. Phil. That's DRPHIL. How did you get so fascinated with all of this?
Well, my whole life I've kind of been into all this stuff. And then, of course, I ended up in the SEAL teams, which is a really good starting place to develop the mindset, which you alluded to earlier. The mindset is the most important thing. Mindset is everything. And that developed my mindset to start looking at things through that Navy SEAL lens. I did a lot of what's called SEER, Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape in the military. And this is mainly geared towards air crew and people who don't have a lot of skill on the ground. So if they got shot down and they're behind enemy lines somehow and we got to come get them, that person needs to survive, that person needs to navigate to their next pickup point, and that person needs to be able to communicate with friendlies and not get caught from the bad guys. And so I went to a lot of those schools, and through that I started getting my brain started getting turned on to all the survival, all the primitive skills, all the stuff that you pretty much saw in the Rambo, First Blood. That's kind of the school that I went to. And I went to a lot of those, and it just started kind of settling in. And I got fascinated with all the different skill sets, not just survival, but mindset, navigation, primitive skills, all the hunting traps that indigenous peoples have used throughout history. If you scale those up to man size, that's Rambo. That's First Blood right there. All these things I wanted to know, and tracking, counter-tracking, all these fascinating skills that humans, by and large, because of in the West, because of our dependence on the water coming out of the faucet and electricity coming out of the wall, we just don't see them as necessary anymore. We're going back to even our grandparents' time. They had all this stuff locked down. And I think that's a tragedy, not just for, in potential, extremist situations, but also just in life. We're not connected to the people. We're not connected to the ground. We're not connected to the animals. We're not connected to where our food comes from. And I think that's a tragedy.
I give intelligence tests when I was in private practice. We'd give the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale revised version, where we would test people's intellect to see how they were in verbal and quantitative skills and things like that. And we'd say, okay, this person has an above average IQ or a superior IQ or whatever. But the truth is, there are different kinds of IQ. And one of the things we always paid attention to was adaptive IQ. How well could somebody adapt to their environment and their situation? And I had a certain kind of IQ that had to do with learning and reading books and sort of things like that. But I always thought back, I had a couple of uncles that couldn't spell cat if you spotted them the C and the T. But yet you put these guys out in the woods, and I guarantee you they would be alive a hell of a lot longer than I would. because they had survival skills. I mean, they're the kind of guys that would, pull a limb off a tree and sharpen the edge of it and stand in the water real quick. They knew how to noodle catfish and, wait till they felt them exhale and then they'd jam their hands into their mouths and they'd come up with a 5-pound catfish and, they're having catfish for breakfast. Next thing I knew, they had a grill over there and they were making eggs and biscuits and all kinds of stuff. And I'm standing over there wishing I could order something from the Four Seasons, and these guys are cooking up. I mean, they have adaptive IQ. And I wonder sometimes the average person that doesn't have your training and skill, how long they would last if they were on their own out in the wilderness and in the woods, how long they would last. Because you say you can go, 3 days without water? That's tough.
Well, that's the rub right there. Exactly what you brought up, because you're weighing things. You're giving things up for some things. Like I did an episode of Manhunt one time, and I was in the Philippines, and it was like an hour until my extract time, and I was so thirsty, and I didn't have time to purify any water, and I thought, well, I've got an hour until my extract point. I'm just going to drink some water from the stream so I can still function at 100%. And if I get some amoebas or some creepy crawly inside me sends me to the hospital, the hunt is over. The hunt is done. I can be in the hospital for 2 weeks after this. And so it was a gamble, but I never in normal circumstances would drink untreated water, just because there's so many things that can go wrong, but it's always a trade-off. There's always a trade-off. What do I need in this specific point in time? How can I get it? And what am I going to lose by taking this choice? And just weighing what could possibly happen in that. But I think that this knowledge is in our DNA as humans. And I think that once you start looking for it or activating it, it's there. And I've seen people just really connect with this material, and people that have never done it before. And when I've been training and stuff, housewives never thought that they'd want to do any kind of water purification or fire starting or tracking. And then you start, giving them little bits and start their mind thinking in that way. And boom, all of a sudden they're Tarzan of the ape men,
Everybody's thinking right now, if they got out and they were in a stream and, Bambi's drinking out of it and they're thinking, okay, that looks like a perfectly clean brook. How do you purify that water? Can you boil water and it gets clean?
Yes. Well, if Bambi's drinking out of it, that is an incredible indicator that it's going to be safe water. Drink where the horses drink. Horses aren't going to drink bad water. But if you don't have Bambi drinking out of the stream and you just have a stream here, the thing you need to do is there are two things when it comes to water purification. There's cleaning the water and there's purifying the water. So the mud and all that nasty stuff, you got to clean that out. But what's more important is you're getting all the paramecium and the amoebas and all the bacteria and stuff out. So there are two different things that you need to do. And in my book and in the stuff that I've done, I'd always train how to clean the water, but then also purify it. Boiling is the best way to purify water.
Is there something you can filter it through? Is there something you can pour it through to get most of that stuff out of there?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do it. I always teach building sand. If you take like a water bottle and you can put sand in a third of it, and then you can put charcoal in a third of it, and then little cotton balls or t-shirt in the rest of it, and you're going to filter all of the big particles and stuff out. That charcoal is going to do a really good job of filtering the stuff that can make you sick out, as well as cleaning it. And then if you were to boil that water, you're going to have a clean, safe source of drinking water.
If you bring it to a boil, are you good?
If it hits boiling, you're good. In fact, right before boiling, everything that can kill you is dead. So that's a question that I always mess with people in my courses and stuff, is like, how long must it be boiled? And people say half hour, 5 minutes, whatever. The reality is when it hits boiling, the stuff that can mess you up is dead.
What is BUDS/S? BUDS. What does that stand for?
BUDS. BUDS is legendary. BUDS is basic underwater demolition/SEAL training. And this is the selection process for Navy sailors who want to become Navy SEALs. This is what they must go through in order to get selected to then go to a team and then be trained up to operational standards and then go into, that's me as a BUDS instructor right there in the middle. think that's class 252, in fact. Those are all students that I put through training as one of their instructors.
What kind of things did you train these guys to do?
Really what we're trying to do, we use all the Navy SEAL things in that picture: diving, guns, explosives, physical training, tactical, whatever, in order to get to their mind and see if they have the mindset, the intelligence, and the soul really to become one of us. And so BUDS is a screening process to find out if you have what it takes. And during that process, we are training them. They are learning to dive, they're learning to shoot, they're learning to use demolitions and all that stuff. But in reality, it's not about training them how to do these things. It's about, can I give them some basic instructions and then put some massive pressure on them and see how they perform under duress with very dangerous things like guns and explosives and diving, things like that. So really it's a soul test, really. It's a soul test to find out if this person has the internal fortitude and the mindset in order to be an addition to our unit or not.
When you're getting to this level and you get guys that are doing this kind of thing, that takes a pretty good commitment. I mean, this is not something that's easy to do. I've been a scuba diver for 30 or 40 years, and mostly when people are just doing recreational diving, you still have to keep your head about you. You're talking about a whole different level of underwater performance, and this is something that can be very demanding. When you went through your training, you guys weren't in the Bahamas with 84 degrees and 100-foot visibility. That's a whole different ball of wax.
It is. It's the cold that you'll experience. The thing is that when we're diving the Draeger closed circuit pure oxygen rebreathers that we use to do any kind of combat mission, that provides oxygen at a very steady and rather low flow rate. If you are generating any enhancement in your breathing rate, in your respiration rate, you cannot get a respiration rate that's beyond resting and breathe that rig. So what that means is you're never able to generate body heat in the cold water, because if you're generating body heat, you're over breathing your rig and you're not getting enough oxygen and things are about to go bad very quickly for you. It's happened to me. It's not fun. The kinds of environments we operate in are the nastiest, the coldest, the most difficult, the most miserable experiences. In fact, we say amongst ourselves, it's not that we're so good. It's just that we can endure more suck than everybody else. So, everything we do is in a miserable conditions because that's how it's supposed to happen. And when I was doing manhunt, whenever there was a situation where I had a choice where I could go someplace quick and easy or nasty and hard, I would always take the nasty and hard part because I knew I could handle more nasty and hard than the people chasing me.
You've heard me talk about Jace Medical. If not, listen up because they're doing incredible work in medical preparedness. And today I've got two major updates to share. First up, the ivermectin use case. You've probably seen the headlines calling it a wonder drug. The scientist who discovered it even won a Nobel Prize. And now Jace is offering a 30-day supply at the best price you'll find anywhere. Next, the upgraded Jace case, an emergency supply of antibiotics delivered to your door. They've doubled the number of medications to 10 at just $20 more. And now, the most comprehensive and affordable kit available. Get it before you need it. Don't wait, order today. Visit jace.com and use code PHIL at checkout for a special discount. That's JASE.com, code PHIL. You've been in difficult situations, even in training. How did you break both of your legs?
When I was going through first phase in BUDS is 9 weeks long, and it is designed to slam you physically with everything and destroy you if we can. We're trying to break your body so we can get to your head. We're trying to test the mindset, but the way we test the mindset is by going through the body. And so in first phase, we're not training them up diving, guns, explosives, none of that. They're just being kicked in the nuts repeatedly every day, all day long. And it's just to find out who can handle these incredibly nasty circumstances before we even move on past that. So the infamous Hell Week occurs in the 5th week of training in first phase, and that's 5.5 days of no sleep and constant training. It's brutal. I mean, they make movies about it. And when I started Hell Week, there are certain milestones when you're going through buds that if for some reason something in you breaks or you have an injury or something like that, you can roll back to that previous milestone that you passed and then go forward in training with the next class. So if good guys are getting broken, we want to keep that good guy. We're going to roll him back and see if we can get him past that obstacle that he's at. So the first rollback time is Hell Week. You have to finish Hell Week before anything else, because if you don't go through Hell Week, you go back to day one, week one of phase one training, and nobody wants to do that. So when I was about to start Hell Week, the weekend before Hell Week started, I could feel in my leg that I had a stress fracture. I was feeling the pain every time I stepped on it. But if I let the instructor staff know that I had a stress fracture, they're going to pull me out of training. I'm going to rest up and heal, and then I'm going to go back to day one, week one, and start all over again. The 5 weeks, some of the nastiest 5 weeks in buds. I'm going to have to go through all that again to get to Hell Week. So I thought, I'm doing Hell Week. So I started Hell Week. My leg, of course, hurt, but after a few days, nothing hurts anymore. You're just numb and you're a zombie. The last day of Hell Week, when they secure you and you stop, everyone sits down, and then a whole bunch of us can't stand up again because all the injuries that we've been going on, your mind has just overrode. Game is over. Now you can deal with me. And then you're just locked up. And so both my legs were just in massive pain, and they x-rayed me, and I had bilateral stress fractures at the heads of both my femurs. And in fact, on the x-ray on one of them, right by where the head of the femur popped off, Dr. Phil, you could see it looked like one of those photos of a bullet going through an apple where everything's fragmenting out. You can see bone fragments like fragmenting off of my femur. It was crazy. And so I had to go heal up for several months, and then I jumped back in training with class 222 and graduated with them.
But you didn't have to go back to week one.
No, I went back to after Hell Week. So I finished Hell Week, and then I had to let my legs heal up. And then I started with the next the 2 classes later, the day after they finished Hell Week.
You were through the worst of it.
Well, that's what you think. And that's what you want to think. And you have to think that in order to make it through the rest of the training. But it doesn't get easier. It gets better. That's the career as a SEAL. It never gets easier. It just gets better and better.
How many weeks were left?
The 5th week of training is Hell Week, and first phase is 9 weeks. So then you have 4 more weeks after that. And then you go into second phase, which is dive phase, where I was an instructor, that photo you put up, and they learn open circuit and closed circuit scuba. And that is, I think, 7 or 8 weeks. It shifts around sometimes. And then there's a section in that called pool week, which is kind of the Hell Week. It's not as brutal, but it's kind of the screening, the do or die period in second phase. And then you go to third phase, which is weapons and demolition, small unit tactics. And the final month of that, I think that's 9 or 10 weeks as well. The final month of that is out at San Clemente Island. And that's brutal because nobody can hear you scream out there. When you're doing the training, it takes place on Coronado, California, San Diego, right on the Silver Strand. And most of the training, there's constantly VIP guests coming, actors, sports figures, government figures. They all come because they all want to watch the Navy SEAL training going on. And so there's a little bit of control that puts on the instructor staff, so that they have to make sure that everything is happening within all the regulations of training and all of that. And then you go out to San Clemente Island, and there's no VIPs around, and nobody's there to hold the instructor staff back. And now is when they really get to lay it into you. And so that was brutal as well. It's just, the whole thing is just, until you graduate, it's brutal. And then after you graduate, you get a little break, and then you go to a team, and then you get back. It just, like I say, it doesn't get easier. It just gets better.
You say this absolutely changed the DNA of who you were.
Without question. It rewrote my DNA. When you go through buds, and especially the first phase of Hell Week, it's like peeling an onion. Every day they're slicing another layer and pulling it open, and you're forced to look at yourself at a very face-to-face, no delusion left in there. There's no delusion in buds. And you see that, and it's just peeling this onion layer by layer by layer. And if you're able to, you will get to the very nugget of your core of your soul, of your being. And you'll take a look at that, and then you'll back up, and then you'll be able to realize that everything there is okay. But guys find rotten spots, and then they drop off all the time. So it's a unlayering to the very nugget of your soul, and you come face to face with that.
I can't imagine what it's like to go through it, but I can hear what it's done for you in terms of your resilience and defining who you are and knowing who you are. And clearly you can't do this sort of thing for the average person, and certainly nobody can read a book and get 1/10 of 1% or 1/1000th of 1% of what you can achieve going through what you've gone through. But what you've done is take some of the things that you have learned that are conveyable. And that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit about, what can a Navy SEALs bug-in guide do for you and your family? And one of the things you talk about is you can set up a safety net for hard times. You say, unless a fire or tornado is heading straight for your home and you need to evacuate in a hurry, that this bug-in guide will help you prepare for any other kind of crisis, whether it's an economic meltdown or civil war, whatever. And you say one of the most important things people need to do mindset-wise is set up to rely on yourself. Don't expect the government to come in and fix things for you, help things for you, help you get through things. You need to look first to yourself and not for somebody to come in and do it for you, to just become more self-sufficient. That's the beginning.
Yes, that is. And I want to say that it's your community. It's not just you, because nobody's going to do everything on their own. But we used to be so much more tied in with community. And since I moved out to Tennessee, that's the way I am. I get my raw milk from my dairy farmer friend every Monday afternoon. I pick up my raw milk, and I know the local herbalists. So I can get whatever I might need from that person. And I get my beef from an amazing rancher family that does everything without any kind of growth hormones or antibiotics or anything like that. But I have connections to all these people. And I raise bees, and I have a garden, and I have all these other things. Chickens, of course. I have a lot of things that are self-sufficient, but I'm not doing everything. But what I am is I know people, and I'm connected with people. We're self-sufficient, but we're community sufficient. And I think that's really important. Community is a huge thing. People ask me all the time on the bug-in guide, well, what about me? I'm in an apartment or I'm in a condo. I'm like, well, there are some disadvantages to that. Absolutely. But you also have a built-in community right there of people that you can depend on, that you can communicate with, that you can work with. It's all about optimizing the situation.
I'm so glad you said that. I was just in Western North Carolina after the hurricane went through there, working with some other groups like Samaritan's Purse. We went in with some Black Hawk helicopters and were able to get into some communities that were totally cut off in the mountains up there. The roads were torn up. The railroads were torn up. You couldn't get there any way other than by air. And the way those people survived was community. They were helping each other. And I said at the end of that visit that I believe it was America at its best. These were people helping each other. And if this one had this but not that, they were sharing it. They were over helping each other with their houses, and maybe one was getting mud out of their basement. The other one was helping with a roof that had gotten damaged. And we were able to go in with generators and Starlinks to bring them communication and food and water. And, nobody cared whether it was a Democrat or a Republican or somebody was wealthy or not. All they cared is that they were just all Americans and they were helping each other. It was absolutely America at its best.
It's a beautiful thing. And that's what I want to see. I mean, I want my book to help individual families and individual people, be prepared for these things, certainly. But I think the bigger thing is I want to see community. I want to see Americans being Americans with each other and connecting and understanding and having a commonality there. We've lost, I think, to a large degree, what it is to be American. And if we can drive a little bit of more community building instead of individual building or dependence on whatever it might be, big pharma or the media complexes or the government or whatever, I mean, we have everything we need. Man, just go inside.
And you were saying rely less on big corporations and Uncle Sam and more on yourself, like growing and preserving your own food, gathering rainwater, making powerful natural remedies, build small projects you need in your backyard and around the house for self-sufficient life. And you really go into that in a Navy SEALs bug-in guide. And this, let me tell you, having read this book cover to cover, I can tell you, you want to read this book cover to cover because it will really raise your awareness. This is not a book that you read and go, wow, that was an interesting read. This is a book people are going to read and then they're going to keep it as a manual. This is something they're going to want to get multiple copies of because they're going to wear out the first one because they're going to be going to different parts of it while they're working on something. Then they're going to want to have copies that they're going to give to their family and friends. They're going to wear out their copies and need a second copy. You're going to want to read it, but then it's going to become a manual. You also talk to them about seeing through the fog of disingenuous advertising and stop wasting hard-earned money on bogus products and bad advice. And once you understand what's essential, that stuff starts to really be transparent. You can really see, yeah, that's crap.
Totally. I love that you said that because this is what I want the book to do. It's not just a manual on all those things. I mean, it is. And all those are all the things that I want people to learn and utilize. But more so, I want to empower people. Get this knowledge and read this stuff and understand the situation. Feel more in control of your circumstances because you are more in control of your circumstances. And you can be, and you don't have to be dependent on all these corporations and all these government types telling you that we're dependent on them and that we need them to survive because we don't. We do not. You need your community and you need a little bit of dirt.
You talk about how you can sleep like a baby at night because your property is secure and that you can make your house invisible to looters and FEMA. And you say you can turn your house into an almost invisible shelter. And you say just like you can camouflage yourself, you can also kind of make your home vanish in plain sight. So talk about that a little bit. Give me some examples of how people can do things to make their dwellings safer and not be such a target to looters and rioters and unwelcome government officials. Give us a few examples.
Well, so I'll go back to BUDS a little bit. And there's a concept in BUDS called being the gray man. And the gray man is somebody who never sticks out, either in good or bad circumstances. He's never the kid who's last on the run, who's getting hammered because he's not keeping up. And he's never the guy who's breezing through things and looking like a gazelle to everybody else either. The gray man is the guy that the rest of the instructor staff, we're sitting there in our dress blues on graduation day, looking at this class that we just put through training, go through, and I'm nudging my buddy going, hey, do you remember, you recognize that guy? Who's that? He's like, I don't know. He looks vaguely familiar. And I'm like, I don't remember that guy. And I just spent 6, 7, 8 months around this kid, putting him through the most brutal training on earth. But somehow he never got anybody's attention and he never got any extra attention. He never got hassled. He never got extra military instruction, which is a code name for just getting beat. He was able to slip through without drawing any attention to himself. And that concept is making your house the gray man. It's the simple stuff. When the power goes out and you have your solar generator that's been charging in the backyard, for the last couple of weeks and it's full of juice, you're not blasting tunes or, your lights on in your living room aren't blasting out onto the street. You just got to make sure that you're never attractive to looters. You just make sure that there's nothing in your house that looks like it would be worth anything. And there are some very simple things that you can do to make it not worth their while. For instance, we see brick fences all the time that have like broken bottles on top of them. It's not the smoothest way to deter people jumping the fence, but everybody looks at that and you look at that and you say, that person doesn't want people jumping the front fence and they're interested enough in keeping people out of jumping their fence that they're going to put broken glass on the top of it. Okay, there's probably, I hear a dog barking or something like that. Okay, there's a few things that mean that even if that place is slightly attractive, there are going to be some hurdles that I'm going to have to navigate that may not make it as worthwhile as this other house 2 blocks down that I don't hear a dog at. So things like that, very simple things, just to not draw attention. And if it is drawing attention, they're the kind of things that are subtle deterrents.
We were in Italy one time. It's our first time to be in this particular city. I won't name it because I don't want to get a bunch of mail, but we were at a restaurant in this city, and the waiter came over to my wife and gave her the menu, and he leaned down and said, ma'am, you're going to want to take that jewelry off. And she said, excuse me? He said, you're going to want to take that jewelry off. And she said, oh, okay. He said, no, I mean, you're going to want to take that off right now. and what he was telling her is, you don't want to leave this place with that jewelry on because they're out on the cab stand and on the street. You don't want to draw attention to yourself in this neighborhood. You will never make it back to your hotel. And then we started talking to him as we were being served and stuff. And he said, they will cut your hand off to get that ring. They will cut your hand off to get a watch. They will cut. It's just, and that's what you're saying. Be gray. Mm-hmm. Don't be flashy. Don't draw attention to yourself. Just blend into the background.
Uh-huh. Exactly. Don't draw any attention, good or bad. Just gray man.
That totally makes sense. I think people think sometimes, look, I don't know how to do a lot of this stuff, but you've set out some of the things to do in your book that make things attainable. You show people how to connect the dots in ways that they may think they don't have the skill sets. They may think they don't have the ability to do this, but you put the dots close together and connect them with a bright red line. So even the person that thinks that they may not have the experience to do it, you make it where they can. And one of the things that I think you set out so well is they have to decide that they need to adopt and embrace a mindset that says, look, I am going to survive. I am going to endure. I am going to be resilient. And this is up to me. This starts from the inside out. And I can't sit around and whine about this. I can't be entitled about it. I can't feel sorry for myself. This is up to me. I got to have the right mindset. And if I do, I will. And I can't tell you from a psychological perspective how true that is. Because if not being Pollyannish, but if we have a positive mindset about things, we function at a much higher level intellectually. We're much better cognitively. Our situational awareness goes up. Everything is better if we have a positive, optimistic attitude. Not Pollyannish, but a positive attitude. And that leads me to getting you to talk about situational awareness, because that's one of the things that is you guys are trained in. That's so critical, and you talk about it in your book.
It really is. And like I said earlier, and like you keep hitting, which we're totally on the same page, mindset is everything. Mindset is the beginning, middle, and the end. So situational awareness, a huge part of that, which is just being aware of your surroundings constantly, having those antennae out, not being in your phone. I mean, our phones are great. There's a lot of good stuff that we can have. And there's a lot of ways that you can use your phone to enhance your situational awareness. Something I like to do a lot of times is if I want to be the gray man, I can just put the cameras on my phone, and I'm engaged in my phone. But really what I'm doing is I'm seeing everybody that doesn't think I'm seeing them. I'm looking behind me. I'm looking in front of me. I'm zooming in on things. I'm reading the room at a much higher level. So there's lots of tricks that you can do. But just in general, just being aware of what's going on around you, the energy that people are moving in, and that the collective energy, the vibes that is putting out. I'm big into that. You can really read things that way. But I think in doing things like my book, reading these things, being interested in them is going to naturally enhance your situational awareness, because these things are all about developing your situational awareness, using all your senses. In fact, a lot of times, a lot of things I would train people when they're doing tracking or booby traps, the first thing people do is they get locked in down on the ground, and they don't see around them, and they don't look up. I would use this to my advantage all the time in manhunt by distracting them or putting booby traps up high, or nobody ever looks up. That's the thing. Nobody ever looks up. If you want to hide something, put it up.
I was so glad to read the things that you were talking about. You discussed mental toughness, cognitive reframing, where you talk about reframing pain and exhaustion as challenges rather than obstacles, deciding that you do have to make split-second decisions and not hesitating because, we'd love to have all the information. We'd love to have all the data. But in the real world, you just don't have all the information. You don't have all the data. And I can tell you, and maybe it's because of being in the field of psychology all of my adult life, it's, if I come into a restaurant, and of course people notice me, so I don't like to have my back to the room anyway, but I never sit with my back to the room ever. They call it the gunfighter's chair in Texas. You don't ever want your back to the room. But the first thing that happens when I come into a room, and I've taught my boys this, is the first thing I do is find the exits. And the second thing I do is I scan the room and find the most unstable people in the room. I just do. I know what people are capable of. And so I just kind of scan around, and if there's somebody that to me looks really unstable or on the verge of out of control in some way, I find them. And if somebody gets confronted, they always say, look at their eyes. Their eyes are the window to the soul. Bullshit. I watch their hands. I've never had anybody stare a hole in me, but I can sure see how somebody can poke a hole in you. I always watch people's hands. I mean, I just know. I mean, these are weapons. Their eyes aren't weapons. Their hands are weapons. And so I just have, and it's just ingrained in me. My wife teases me about it all the time. But I come in and I find the exits, I find the unstable people, and I always watch their hands. It's ingrained in me. It's just part of it.
I would love to have that skill set. That's awesome. And what do you think about, if I could ask you a question, I'm a big fan of my intuition and my subconscious. And so I pay attention to that all the time. And of course, in the course of my life, I've done a lot of things to train that. And I know that I have so much more information that I can't access with my frontal lobe or my conscious memory. So I'm big on the feel and on my intuition in situations like that. And I trust that.
Yeah, you referred to it as the vibe, and I've worked on a lot of airline crashes over the years where they bring me the black box recorders from, airliners that go down, and we do stress analysis tests and we compare that to what's happening with the engines. And so often you will see that there is an irregularity in the engine, for example, that it's starting to malfunction before it's even registering on the gauges. There'll be something there, and you will hear stress in the voice. It registers, it goes up. They may still be talking about a backyard barbecue they're going to have, which is okay. If you're above 10,000 feet, you can have non-essential conversation in the cockpit. That's not a violation. And they'll still be talking about that, but the stress in their voice goes up. They know it unconsciously. They've not admitted it to consciousness yet, but it's registering with them because you can feel the stress in their voice is going up. Their anxiety is going up. The tension is going up. And it starts going up vertically as it gets worse if an engine is running rough or something is happening that is going to lead to an accident. And you find it almost every time, unless it's a catastrophic thing that happens instantly. That is something, it may be what we call subclinical. It's not something that has been admitted to consciousness yet, but you know it. And you have to train yourself to turn that ear inward and hear what's there and admit it to consciousness. And I love it when I'm wrong. I love it when I hear it and I get out of the room and nothing happens. I love it when I pull in the driveway and the wheel didn't fall off. I love it. I've been a pilot since I was a teenager. I love it when I land and everything was fine. I love being wrong, but I never want to deny that I need to be alert. Something is telling me something's not right here. I love being wrong, but I don't ever want to fail to be right.
Exactly. Yeah. You want to listen to that because I think, and especially those pilots and like yourself, I mean, you've got so many hours gathering and screening information that is not at a conscious level. And I want to trust all that information and all that work that I've done and all these, SEAL operations and BUDS experiences and hunts during manhunt and all that stuff. That's information that you can't buy that kind of information. So I want to trust my subconscious to take care of me in ways that it can, that I can't consciously.
And you talk about decision fatigue and panic paralysis and the social isolation, all of those things that you have to deal with in your training, and just making people aware of that. This is not something that comes up in normal conversation, but it is in your book. And if you can just make people where it's on their radar, it's just something that they talk about. And so they have a conversation about it, just making it part of their vocabulary, making it part of their awareness, just makes them less vulnerable to it because they've acknowledged it. They've talked about it. That's where I think what a Navy SEAL survival tactics is so useful in so many areas. And that's why I say I think people are going to read this, they're going to reread it, then they're going to talk about it. That's why I say it's more than a book, it's also a manual. And just congratulations on writing such a usable book.
Thank you so much. The one thing I do want to say that you just brought up is that and I go over this in my book, I go over it, and everything I teach or train people in is that what you want to do, what you need to do, what we need to do is we need to decide what we want to do, what our reactions to extreme circumstances, what our reaction to assaulters or looters or whatever situations we might find ourselves in, home invasions. We got to decide that before the moment happens. Because when you're cold, wet, tired, hungry, and afraid, and you've got adrenaline surging through your system, that's a terrible time to make strategic decisions. Tactical, perhaps, but terrible to make strategic. We need to figure these things out and address these contingencies well before we're under duress. And then when we have a plan and terrible circumstances happen, you will find that you'll drop back to that plan and you will be in a much better place just by having thought about a contingency that might not be the contingency you're facing, but the fact that you've branched out and you've thought about things and you made plans about, I'm not going to get captured. Like in survival, they always teach you in the military, when it comes to, your life, limb, or eye, you're in a dangerous situation, go ahead and be captured, because living to fight another day is better than dying out in the field. And I don't entirely agree with that. I've made my own decisions based on what I believe and what I know about myself, so that when these bad situations come up, I've already got a plan and I don't have to worry about coming up with a plan when I'm not at my best. You plan when you're at your best so you can execute when you're at your worst.
I'm so glad you said that, because I've worked with experts in self-defense and with children in particular. We talk about telling children what to do if some predator approaches them or whatever, and tell them what to do. And what the research tells us is that if you can tell that child to plan ahead what they're going to do, that's great. But if you don't role play it with that child, if they don't actually do it, if you tell them to drop to the ground, roll, and start yelling and screaming, if you don't actually have them role play it, if they're doing it for the first time in crisis, they're likely to freeze and not do it. But if you actually role play it with them out in the yard and they've done it 8 times, 10 times, you sneak up on them and they do it, then when it happens, the chance of them actually doing it when it's not the first time they've ever done it goes up exponentially, and it can absolutely save their life.
Training.
Yeah, exactly. I also believe very strongly that crises don't make heroes. Crises reveal who you really are. Mm-hmm. I had a story down in New Orleans when Hurricane Katrina hit down there. There was an ex-military guy that nobody knew. He never talked to anybody. This guy was up on the roof with everybody else, and he took like 9 people to safety off of rooftops, and he would get them, and some of the old people, he got them to safety, and he wore himself out. He was an absolute hero. And when they finally got there and went to rescue him, he was gone. He had exhausted himself, and nobody knew him. Nobody knew who he was. He was there quietly, and in the crisis, he revealed himself to be a hero that lived quietly on that corner. And I don't think that crisis made him a hero. It just revealed who he was. And you need to think, who you are when a crisis comes. What are you going to do? How are you going to handle it? And you can make that decision long before it gets to be time.
Exactly. Who do you want to be? That's made right now, not when the crisis happens. Exactly right. Spot on.
All of you guys watching and listening, I'm talking to Joel Lambert, and his book is a Navy SEAL's Bug-In Guide. This isn't just a survival manual, but it's also a blueprint for resilience and resourcefulness and readiness. You don't know what the crisis is going to be. It may be a natural disaster, a financial crisis that comes. You could be facing a chronic disease that you're dealing with. We could, come under some kind of cyber attack that shuts down our grid, our communication, our utilities. We don't know, and hopefully it doesn't come to that in your lifetime. He went through training that he says changed the DNA of who he was. And he's not asking you to go through all of that. What he's doing is saying, I went through this for you. And in it, I learned some things that you don't have to go through all of this to get the benefit of. I'm going to share with you those things that are transferable, those things that you can embrace without having to go through everything I went through. So I'm going to share that with you. So this is a book that is just packed with SEAL-tested strategies. And Joel breaks down everything from securing your home during a crisis to building mental toughness when things are falling apart all around you. There will be those that come out on top, and there will be those that don't. And it's just really about being prepared. And we're not talking about just physically. We're talking about socially, psychologically, environmentally, and how to navigate the unexpected. So if you're looking for practical tools and powerful insights to not only survive, but thrive, I'm telling you, this is the guide that you need. And the preparation isn't just about surviving. It's about empowering yourself to face life head on. And it will change how you live, not just in crisis. It will prepare you, and you will feel empowered. Your anxiety will go down. And I just think you'll feel a whole lot better. So you guys know I don't throw roses and go on about things that I don't believe in. I wholeheartedly endorse this book and the man who wrote it. So if you trust me, then trust that this is a good commitment of your time. So Joel, thank you for being here and talking to us today.
Thank you, sir. Let's build a beautiful community.
I talked about fewer things in this book than those that I talked about. I think we scratched the surface on 10 or 20% of this, and there's any one of these points that we could spend the whole hour talking about. So maybe we can get together and talk about this again.
Anytime, sir.
Well, Joel, thank you so much. It's a Navy SEAL's Bug-In Guide, how to turn your house into the safest place on earth. And he connects the dots well. Joel Lambert, I thank you, and we'll talk again soon, my friend.
Thank you, Dr. Phil. Appreciate it.
Hey, Dr. Phil here. My network, Merit TV, has it all.
Now, let me blow your mind.
Merit TV's got the news that matters.
The selection of a new pope.
Entertainment you crave.
Busted.
Everybody in a good mood today?
And live events.
Surprise.
What am I, chopped liver?
With serious punch.
Big shot.
Go to merittv.com and download the Merit TV app today.